Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual design review panel meeting. On our agenda, we have development proposal at 1809 through 1843 Rymal Road East in Stony Creek. My name is Edward Winter. I'm an urban designer at the City of Hamilton and hosting this meeting. David Cluzio of our panel will chair this meeting. In addition to our panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and media all observing today. Members of the public are welcome here to observe the meeting, but there's no commenting or questions from the public. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the City of Hamilton's Design Review Panel webpage. Lastly, a reminder to our panelists to keep your microphones muted when not speaking. Thank you everyone for attending our meeting today. David, you may begin when you're ready.
Sorry, David, I think you're on mute.
Dave, you're on mute. Can you hear us?
It looks like David can hear us, but we can't hear you still, David. Sorry.
Can he hear us anymore? It doesn't seem to be. Let's see if we can send him a message.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion there. I have to admit I'm having quite a bit of trouble today with computers. But anyway, Edward, can you please confirm the session is being recorded?
Yes, we are recording.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Just that Eldon is going to abstain.
Right. I'm assuming by silence that there are no panel members who have conflicts of interest with this project, given that Eldon has stepped aside. Okay, on the agenda today is the review of 1809 to 1843 Rymal Road East. The lead planner on the file is Tim Vroman, who is available to answer any policy questions, and Edward Winter will make a brief presentation. Edward, if you can go ahead with that. Keep your presentation under 5 minutes.
And as I'm beginning, I just note that James Van Roy has joined us as the planner. All right, so the development proposal here is along Rymal Road in Stony Creek. This is the south end of previous development, and there's quite a lot involved. So let's get through this. This includes 4 mixed-use buildings and 2 townhome blocks for a total of 812 residential units, 800 of which are within 4 12-story towers and 12 townhome units. This will be complemented by 2,647 square meters of commercial retail space at grade. And the proposal would include 1,078 total parking spaces provided on surface and within 2 levels of underground parking. 58 of those spaces are allocated for commercial spaces. So this we see Rymal Road in the air photo proceeding from the west and then sweeping down diagonally towards the east. And we have the subject lands in blue across the street from a school and a schoolyard and a smaller commercial retail plaza. Okay, some photographs. This is looking at the southwest corner, proceeding east along Rymal Road. See the school in the background. This is taken from the same vantage point, looking south. This is the smaller commercial plaza, and we're moving to the opposite side, to the east side of the property. Actually seeing where this house is right now, I believe is where the property would start. And then looking northward, we see some lower residential units, which are part of that previous subdivision. Then looking south, on the right, we have the high school, and to the left, we have some additional various stages, recent, semi-recent townhome developments. This area has been in change for the, I would say, the past 10 years or so, and this is the next phase of which. Okay, so here we have the conceptual site plan. Here we see the 4 12-story buildings along Rymal Road. And then in the back, we have the 2 townhome blocks that back onto some existing townhomes. Right now, there's proposed 2 vehicular entrances, one at either end, and the one does align with the traffic intersection at the west side of the property. We had some staff comments from formal consultation stage. These were requesting additional information and some studies to evaluate the development proposal in more depth. Some of those requests are the residential unit mix, shadow impact, see a sun shadow study, evaluation of the angular plane and step backs, a wind study, possibly sustainable building design strategies for those the 12-story buildings. And it does note that staff identified some concern over the proposed height, which I think primarily because Rymal Road is a little bit lower at this point, but it is fair to say that there are some adjacent proposed developments that are also seeking height. So this is something that is topic of discussion and relevant for discussion here. So leading on to our questions, does this proposal represent compatible integration with the surrounding area in terms of use, scale, form, and character, noting the different uses to the south of Rymal Road and north of the subject site? Does the proposed organize space in a logical manner through the design and placement and construction of new buildings, streets, and structures and landscaping? Third, does the proposal connect buildings and spaces through an efficient, intuitive, and safe network of streets, roads, alleys, lanes, sidewalks, and pathways? Does the proposal provide for an active and pleasant streetscape and pedestrian realm along Rymal Road? Fourth, does the proposal provide a mix of unit sizes to accommodate a range of household sizes and income levels? And lastly, does the proposal satisfy the criteria to achieve a 12-story height? Conclude the staff presentation.
Yeah, turn it over to the proponent application to provide a supporting presentation. Please keep it under 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quick introduction. I'm Dave Aston with MHBC, and maybe behind me you can see there's Melissa Visser and Jonathan Hahn with MHBC, planner and urban designer. And online with us is John McGinn from Chamberlain Architects. So we've brought our team in case there's any questions, and I'll try and share my presentation here. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share today. We have a series of slides, and I think what we'll try to do as well is address some of the questions that Edward just identified on his presentation. And I'll try to steer away from kind of duplicating Edward's summary, which was very helpful. We will talk a bit today about some of the context and planning, but really just will likely try to focus in on the urban design context related to the proposal. We have some massings, renderings, and such for discussion today. So this is just some imagery with a bit of the summary and the proposal. The building heights range from 4 to 12 stories. So I think when we're talking about the height, we're asking for the maximum height at 12 stories along Rymal Road, but the plan is to step the property back to lower heights to the rear, which are interfacing with the existing residential to the rear. So with regard to location, Edward did a good summary of where the lands are. Just in a bigger picture, these lands, and there's the images I don't want to cover off or duplicate. In a bigger picture, these lands are what I would characterize as the other bookend to the Central Park community that's been developed over time by Lausanne. To the north is a block that we refer to as Soho, which has 8 and 6-story apartment buildings. And so this block kind of to the south and at Rymal Road, we see as really that again, bookend to the community, and where when we're talking about housing choice and opportunity and mix of units and those types of considerations, the proposal for these 4 apartment buildings is really adding to that mix of uses within not only Central Park community, but the broader community that's really characterized by low-rise residential, moving into other ground-related types of townhomes, and then the mixing in of the mid to higher density apartments. One of the things that we see as this location for the apartment buildings is really the lands are along a major arterial, and at what I would call, and it's not a defined, but I would call it a node where there's some institutional use, some commercial use, and then this opportunity for a higher residential to really support those uses in that area. And the site is in good location relative to larger parks, community parks, and then more natural, passive recreational parks and trails associated with the Aramosa conservation area. So we've worked through the urban design policies with regard to mix of unit types, looking at height transitioning, and how the building is working in context with the street and consideration of public realm components along the streetscape, and then consideration of a transition to the existing residential. And with regard to the corridor planning principles and guidelines, again, we've taken a look at those relative to the orientation of the building, consideration of the facade along Rymal Road, and John can speak to a little bit more than that, a little more detail on those, on that. But we're really looking at creating a building that, from a base perspective, interacts with heights in the broader area, within the additional height, having a different facade approach. So this just provides a context of the massing relative to Rymal Road to the north, with the existing residential uses.
I can start here, Dave, if you want me to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, if you want to take over on the renderings, that would be
Sure.
great.
Okay, great. So, I mean, this is kind of an important final piece, you know, in the Lausanne Central Park project. It's kind of the last puzzle piece. In developing the massing for the project, it was important for us to create a building that fit within its context. So to do this, you know, we've kind of created, if we were to kind of flip back one slide, what we saw before, you know, it's basically creating a proper, you know, street wall along Rymal and a transition stepping down towards the low-rise buildings to the north. If we can flip to the next slide. So along the street edge, we started with a building design that's responsive to its local character. So this has been accomplished by using a 2 to 3 story kind of undulating massing along the street edge. This is helping to kind of scale the project at the pedestrian realm. It's addressing the street with commercial and retail and using more residential type materials and colors to enhance this look. So in this photograph here, you can see the contextual massing scale in comparison to the retail plaza across the street. If we can flip to the next slide. Facing south from the low rise, the stepping of the buildings is quite apparent. It's allowing a nice transition between the current context and the proposed built form. The larger glazed facades are also helping to soften the massing by allowing for increased reflection planes and a lighter overall mass of the buildings. We can go to the next slide. So in this particular view, we've dropped the building into the current context along Rymal. So this shows the transition in the street wall back to the steps on the north side down to the low rise. This terracing creates a few things. It also allows for, you know, step downs, reduced shadowing, but also, you know, different levels of interaction between the multiple levels of the building. So ultimately a little more of a interactive experience for the residents, for the users, you know, both vertically and kind of horizontally as, you know, you witness the site from different vistas. I think Dave, you're going to take over on some of the conceptual site stuff.
I think, yeah, I can speak to some of it, and then maybe John, you could speak
Sure.
to.
I mean, if you want me to start. Or,
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Sure.
Yes,
So
about a minute or two left here.
okay, sorry. So we'll go really quickly here. So as we kind of pointed out quickly, we've adjusted the previous concept and relocated some of the building entrances. We've kept all of the circulation, all of the servicing, all of the parking access, everything on the internal portion of the site. Dave, maybe you can talk through the landscape stuff.
And just as a landscape, you can see where we've looked to transition to the existing residential, provide for features and landscape areas as you're coming into the site. And then also, you know, looked at how the buildings would interact with the street in a, I think, unique way from a pedestrian perspective, and then from a resident user perspective. And then between the two buildings, you can see with the massing, there's some drop down, and those areas would be landscaped amenity spaces for use of all the residents within the building, and likely potentially commercial users as well if they wanted to utilize that balcony space. From a technical perspective, we've worked through the servicing, stormwater management. A wind study has been completed with regard to the building massing. And so we understand any potential impacts associated with wind in the public realm. And just kind of working through some consideration on height, and John, jump in for, if you want here, but we've looked at the angular plane requirements associated with you know, the existing residential buildings to the rear. We really have, you know, looked at the Rymal Road, but in the context of it as an arterial corridor, and the design, we're not intending to, you know, utilize the angular plane with regard to building step backs. But as you can see here, the analysis shows that it's relatively in compliance with the approach to the angular plane. In the scenarios, I don't know, John, do you want to speak to angular plane at all?
No, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it quickly. The angular plane is definitely assisting with the shadow analysis. When you look through the shadow study, you can see how that's helped limit the shadow projections onto the northern
Properties.
rise.
I think you guys should wrap it up.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Dave.
I think, you know, you've seen the renderings, here are the details associated with the elevations. And there's information on the floor plans. There's a mix of uses on the floor, and then the residential elements, showing a mix of unit types as you move from the base up into the residential tower portions. So we're happy to answer any questions. We have additional information, or we can kind of flip back and forth in the presentation as well.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the panelists to ask questions. Dana, you're number one.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I have two questions. My first is how many linear meters is the frontage of the site on Rymal Road? And secondly, what sustainability features, if any, are you considering at this point in the project?
The linear meters, I'd have to take a look, unless John, you happen to know. Do you have it?
I'm going to take a look right now. I'm just seeing if I've got that dimension on the site plan.
Just even an estimate's fine.
64, 30. It's probably about 100, yeah, let's say 200 per, I'm going to call it block, like 200 at building AB.
So like
And
total
then-
400 or so?
Yeah, probably maybe a little under that because building CD is a little less than that. Maybe in the 350 to 400 range.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, your second question about the sustainability of the buildings, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have thought that throughout this stage in the project, if there's any like notable sustainability elements that have been included or that you're planning to include as you move forward.
I mean, there's always elements that will get included at this point. I mean, we haven't kind of dove into that, but you know, certainly it's an interest of the building code, it's an interest of the developer. You know, green roofs, you know, things like that, making sure that we've got proper insulation, full energy models, all that stuff will be done along the way.
Thank you.
Jennifer Mallard.
I have one quick question. Is this rental or condo?
At this point, I don't think we know that answer. I know that there's been discussion on both, and even some discussion on whether, you know, building A and B may be rental or building C and D may be condo or vice versa. I think it's actually a live discussion relative to where things are at with regard to the housing market.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Ted.
Yeah, thanks. One question. Has there, I see what it looks to be a pedestrian connection to the north neighborhood on the west side of the site. Maybe tell us a bit about that. And has there been any discussion about getting a mid-block connection and an eastern edge connection north? There's a whole community there. There's a commercial base here. It feels like having porosity through that space would be valuable. Has there been discussions around that?
What I can share is the one to the west is